Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to our reading through the Gospel of Matthew together. Today, in our reading, we have so many moving parts, so many pieces that we could talk about individually. But beautifully, I find that this passage today communicates something that Jesus invites us into all throughout his ministry. The reading today begins with, "Then Jesus left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, 'Explain to us the parable of the weeds and the field.'" What we find in our own life as we wrestle with the ministry of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus is that it's not uncommon for us to come to a place of confusion. Whether it be confusion about the actions of Jesus or confusion about the words of Jesus. This is not uncommon to the followers of Jesus during the time of Jesus and after the resurrection. The important piece is to be reminded in the readings that Jesus is always willing to explain or to help us understand or to give us understanding, provided that we, like the disciples, come to him and ask. Jesus himself says that if we ask, we will be given an answer, and that if we seek, we will find. After this, now whether this chain of stories follows immediately in direct line at the same time, or whether they're peppered teachings from different times, perhaps we won't know. But it's beautiful the ways that Matthew puts these things together. The disciples are confused about a teaching of Jesus, and Jesus explains to them a way that they can understand it. And then we find Jesus do what he does in his teachings, which is invite us to wrestle, which is ultimately what a parable is. The first wrestling that he invites us into in this chain of thought is that there is something to be discovered in Jesus and what he's offering. There is a value to what Jesus is teaching and what Jesus is offering us in regards to a way of life, in regards to an understanding of the world around us, that there's a treasure. You see that in the parable of the hidden treasure in the field, as well as the parable of the pearl, and the parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the lost sheep, and the concept of going and seeking and finding something of value in the things that God is doing. Then we find that there's the reality that as we begin to live this way, as we begin to wrestle with the teachings of Jesus and try to walk in the ways that he walks, we're going to inevitably find that our way of life, even with the people that gather together as Christians or Christ followers, is that there are people that are perhaps spending time with believers in the common gathering that are not actually believing or walking in the ways that he walks. And we might quickly become overwhelmed with the want to control, which Jesus always invites us to let go of, and not to worry ourselves with, not to draw harsh judgments, but to leave that to God. And in that need to judge that we find in ourselves, made in the image of the judge, we find that there are different ways to go about worshiping God. There are old ways and new ways, and that has always been. Jesus urges us to see the value in our differences. He says in the parable of the new and the old treasures that someone who's actually trained and wise in the ways of the kingdom would be able to see the value in not just the new ways, but also the old ways. Learn from our history, learn from those that are older than us and different from us, so that together we can be built up into something better. The people that don't do those things are the people that make Jesus and they make his teachings at face value. Jesus invites us to not make his ministry or his teachings about the way that they look. That applies to our own life. It is not about the way that we look or the way that we sound or the fact that we've said the right thing or done the right thing. It has everything to do with our faith in him alone. So the problem that Jesus runs into in his hometown at the end of our reading today is that they had made it about the way that Jesus was perceived on the outside. They struggled with faith in him. Ultimately, our faith in him is what guides us through our confusion. That's what helps us. Our faith in him is what helps us get to the place where we value the things that he calls us to value. Our faith in him is what enables us to let go of our differences and help us to see the value in the things that we do differently. Our faith in him is the answer to the chaos or the confusion or the doubt or the questions that are in our mind, in our heart, in our soul. So I invite you into that today as you read through these parables and wrestle with your own relationship with God, to lean into a posture of faith. What is Jesus asking you to let go of? What is Jesus asking you to value? How is Jesus asking you to look to him and him alone as the source of your hope? I'm going to pray that over you. I hope the rest of your day is blessed. Jesus, thank you that you are enough for the confusion in our heart, for the doubt in our soul, for the worry about the way that things look. Jesus, help us to come back to you, to listen to you, to depend on you as our source of hope, as a source of life, as a source of peace. Thank you for being faithful. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.